Well, welcome everybody. We're doing internal financial controls for small business today. I'm Mary Carter. I am a certified management accountant and the controller at Integrity HR Management. So one of the things we often want to ask is, how can internal controls help my business? They're more than just processes and procedures, more than just ways to tell our employees what to do, but they are really practical in helping to reveal training needs. If we have a lot of errors, we want to make sure that we're reducing those errors with processes and procedures and controls that are in place that employees can follow. But also we want to make sure that we're trying to mitigate fraud in any way as well. And so having those internal controls where employees have approvals and accountability will help mitigate fraud. It can also show us where we need to train employees for having a lot of errors. Maybe they need some software training. If they don't have a good process or procedure or control in place that is giving us some poor reporting. It's also a great way to reveal ways that we can invest in our employees in additional education and training. Helps to create uniformity across our organizations, as well as an opportunity to increase accuracy and efficiency for our staff. The second thing that internal controls can do for our business is reveal staffing needs. And this somewhat goes hand in hand with training needs. Maybe our accounting staff is overwhelmed or overworked. They say yes to a lot of things, and maybe they're not saying how much they have and they need some extra help. So there's ways that these internal controls can help to mitigate overwork or overburden. Ways that we can help to supplement with third-party CPA firms or small business services or options. But of course, the biggest thing that we really usually want to use internal controls for is to reveal or mitigate fraud or theft within our organization. Fraud or theft is made up of three different parts known as the fraud triangle. First, we usually have a perceived pressure. Could be a family illness. Maybe there's an addiction, a lifestyle choice that someone's living outside their means. And so once we maybe have that perceived pressure, employees are going to look for opportunities to commit fraud, especially if there's a lack or loose internal controls. They believe they're not going to get caught. This is where the focus will be today, removing that opportunity. The third part of the fraud triangle is rationalization of the fraud. And the person may feel they have no other options. They may be thinking it's just a loan. They're going to pay it back. They might be too embarrassed to ask for help. They may just feel overlooked, underpaid, or undervalued, that they deserve more and they're going to take it. So internal controls can help to remove those. We're going to look at some common areas where internal controls in your finances can mitigate errors and or remove that opportunity for fraud. And developing and implementing processes and procedures in these areas can greatly reduce your cash loss and errors and poor reporting. And those areas we're going to look at today quickly are background checks, your inventory and point of sale, your vendor payments, your employee payments, having a transaction review process, other ways that we can remove opportunity, and then what you can do as an owner or maybe a department manager. So using background checks for employees that are going to operate heavy machinery or company vehicles is often very common. We do that when we're assessing our workers' comp. But utilizing a financial background check for potential employees that will be assessing or accessing sensitive financial information can also be a helpful tool, because it will indicate whether they're going to be a good candidate to handle your business finances. There are both federal and state laws governing financial background checks, and there are background check services available to help you navigate those regulations. But of course, one easy way that's available is conducting an information background check using the open web on sites like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter can offer a lot of insight. Seeing, does a potential employee brag about a lavish lifestyle? What type of comments are linked to their posts? Did they lie about their qualifications? So we have to remember that we are hiring a whole person and not necessarily a robot. So we want to look at the whole person to see if they're going to be a good fit for our organization. Second is if you have inventory or a point of sale, one of the things we do is we want to make sure that we're reconciling all of our purchases and especially our returns, that we have a good process for that. Anecdotally, I actually knew of a client where they had a purchaser who was in charge of purchasing equipment and supplies for both internal and external contracts on a company account. So the employee actually devised a system where they would over purchase certain items and then later return them for store credit. They would take the store credit and then purchase items from the stores and either sell them on eBay or Craigslist for cash, or they would keep them. And because there was no reconciliation process internally on the account, they were able to get away from for a really long time. So that's really important that we make sure that we're reconciling those vendor accounts and monitoring our inventory. Our point of sale systems, I know seems like cash is not the king it used to be maybe in our online purchasing, which may make it seem like it's less important for us to monitor, but less monitoring is going to give an opportunity for an employee to quote unquote borrow from a cash or petty cash drawer and think that they have time to pay it back. So making sure that we're counting our cash drawers daily, not only to take away that opportunity for fraud, but also if there are errors, those errors are going to be much easier corrected on a daily basis than every week or even worse, every month. And of course, those errors are going to reveal that opportunity to give additional training to employees, as well as mitigate any opportunity for theft. Another way that cash goes out our door is through our vendor payments. We really want to make sure that we are requesting detailed invoices from all of our vendors, especially service providers. So we want to make sure that dates, service periods, quantity of items, and shipping addresses are all included. And requesting details on those invoices is going to reduce the opportunity for errors through duplicate payments. We all have, sometimes there's just a timing issue between when a payment is sent, when it's received. A vendor may resubmit an invoice. If it doesn't have that clear detail, it's going to make it more challenging for your staff to take the time to find out, oh, I already paid this or didn't pay it. Before you know it, you might have a duplicate payment out the door. So details also want to include good shipping addresses. And this is a fraud mitigation, because it could be that you might have an employee that's submitting duplicate purchase orders or using duplicate invoices as an opportunity to commit some fraud and having those additional items shipped to their home. So making sure we have all those details is going to help us. Also making sure that we require invoices, good documentation for all of our payments. We want to avoid maybe texts, but paper invoices or electronic invoices that we can attach to our payments in order to make sure that we have that good documentation. If you're using an electronic bill pay system, a lot of those are integrated into our financial softwares or even with our banks. So making sure that we're requiring our staff to have a process to make sure that they're attaching those electronic versions of the invoices, even to the electronic payments. It's really going to increase your accuracy, mitigate errors of duplicate payments. It's also a plus at the end of the year for your tax preparation. And if for any reason you are seeking lending and you need to have a financial audit done, you're going to have all that documentation there. It's going to make it really easy to retrieve. So third one, you want to have a quarterly, maybe semi-annual review process of your vendor file. You want to look for those duplicate vendor accounts, make sure that they're all valid, and of course that none of them have the same address as employees, and if they do, that it's valid. So those are all ways that we can help to mitigate money going out the door that shouldn't. Big one that goes out the door, of course, is when we pay our employees. We want to make sure that not only that time clocks are correct, but expenses, any type of employee that's asking for an expense reimbursement, requiring employee expense reports and attach receipts for all reimbursements. Really good way to avoid fraud or errors. Employees sometimes can inflate business purchases. They might request reimbursement for purchases that were never made, especially with a work from home environment, office supplies, meals, or even they're charging their personal items, fuel and groceries on a company card. Errors might occur, duplicate reimbursement by submitting receipts more than once. They might have forgotten. So having a cutoff date, maybe a period of 60 days for reimbursement to make sure that employees are turning all that in a timely manner. Verifying and approving overtime. Overtime is a premium cost to business. Sometimes errors in overtime can be a sign that employees need additional training on timekeeping systems, or maybe you already have a company policy and it's a revelation that they need some additional training on the company policy for approval of overtime. And overtime is also an opportunity for employees to commit fraud. They might think that that extra 15 minutes or 30 minutes is due to them. They see it as an increase in their pay. So we want to make sure that we have a good process for our overtime. And of course, reviewing your payroll register, matching your gross wages, commissions, your bonuses, your deductions, net pay. Make sure you have all your supporting documents there. Approvals for pay rate changes, changes in direct deposits are steps to also mitigate fraud. And of course, we touched on this in a previous slide of vendor payments. But is there more than one employee with the same address? Are terminated employees still receiving paychecks? Those are called ghost employees. So want to make sure that we're just having that good review process, checks and balances. And of course, if you have any questions, contact Integrity HR Management. Be more than happy to help you review your current payroll process and offer solutions to make it better for you. Transaction review. This is a great way, monthly, weekly. Of course, your monthly bank account reconciliation is one of the best ways to remove and correct errors in your financials and preempt any fraudulent activity, because you're matching your financial books with an independent source, the bank. And I would even say this for our personal finances, making sure that we're looking every month at our bank statement for things that just don't look right to us. That also includes the monthly credit card account review. If you utilize employee credit cards for purchases, you should require receipts for all your purchases, especially when it comes to fleet fuel cards. Make sure they're turning in those receipts that show the gallons purchased. Doesn't take too long before they're having their wife pull the Suburban up to the gas pump as well and adding that on there. So want to make sure we're just have good process. But just like the bank reconciliation, monthly credit card account reconciliations are going to aid in removing and correcting errors and preempting any fraud. Reviewing your outgoing payments. Of course, this again ties back to our slides on vendor and employee payments. You make sure you have a good process so you know who is getting paid and that you have the correct backup to pay them the correct amount. And if this, maybe you don't have a large accounting department, a lot of small businesses, they've got that one great generalist that does everything. I would engage with the third party to add an additional layer of security. A lot of CPA firms, even smaller ones, offer small business services where they could come in, do your monthly bank reconciliations, your credit card reconciliations, give a real good opportunity for a second set of eyes to make sure everything looks good. Also, small business service providers as well that can offer a lot of those great services. It's a good opportunity for your staff to learn as well from somebody that maybe has more experience in a particular industry where they're making errors that need to be corrected and highlight where maybe additional training is needed. So another great investment opportunity. And of course, we want to remove opportunities for theft. fraud or errors whenever we have the possibility to do so. We know we can't remove all opportunity for error and fraud, but we can try. Even with an accounting staff of one, you can make sure that there's more than one person that has access to accounts, passwords, and knows how to complete the different processes and tasks. Maybe consider cross-training employees from different service departments so that you always have an option, even if you are trying to keep a lean staff. Documenting, of course, your procedures in a written format helps to ensure that transactions are completed correctly the first time. And of course, correcting errors and fraud is far more time consuming than following a few extra steps the first time. Another one, even with a lean staff, is to require your staff, your financial staff, to take vacations and time off. It's a great opportunity to test those cross-trained employees on the procedures and internal controls. And if you have an employee that is insisting that they're the only one that can complete a particular task or do that job, I would definitely say that is a red flag. It should be investigated. It could be that they're insisting that they're going to take their work with them on vacation, or they're siloing information and not allowing access to accounts. This is either, it could be that they're just afraid, and that's a different conversation, but it could be that there's some fraud going on there and they're trying to conceal it. And then what else can we do as business owners and leaders? One of the big things is, as business owners, I would strongly suggest that you avoid commingling your business and financial expenses. If your finances are cluttered with personal transactions, it will make it easier for employees to hide their fraudulent activities. Sometimes the opposite is true, and you're spending as a business owner your personal money on business expenses, and those transactions aren't making it into your business finances. This is going to skew the understanding of your business operations. So if you could take a regular paycheck or an owner draw for personal expenses in order to keep them as separate as possible. Plan and project your cash flow. Knowing how much profit and cash you expect at the end of the month can be a really helpful tool. Investigating the difference between what is and what you thought would be could be a revealing insight into what the true cost of your business is. Can reveal errors and fraud if there's a big surprise that you weren't expecting. A quick cash flow projection tool can be set up in Excel, be updated quickly every month. And I just encourage you to make sure that you include your debt payments and your owner draws so that you have a really good picture of exactly how much cash is exiting. And then finally, I would say engagement with your employees. And this can be one of the most important tools in developing internal controls for your organization. Encouraging staff to create and review procedures is an opportunity to develop best practices and more efficient, effective processes. But it's also part of creating a culture of improvement and an open door to listen to your employees' ideas for improvement and create that buy-in from your staff. It's going to make them less likely to commit fraud and more likely to be aware and on their toes to mitigate any fraud on the organization's behalf. Those were a lot of big picture overviews. Your organization may have some of those different internal controls, and it may just be one or two need to be tweaked. But they're all really great opportunities for growth and investment in not only your organization, but the continued growth of your staff. And that's all I have for you today. So thank you so much for joining us.